This is just water. Blessed. It's been blessed. Right, welcome to Truth Seekers North East. Could you please put your phones on silent or turn them off if you wish. We've now got a special guest, Kieran Woodhouse, paranormal expert. So I'm sure his talk's going to be very interesting. If you could just save your questions till the end, directed at you. Save your questions till the end, please. And I'm sure we'll have a good day. We'll probably have a break about 2:15, 2:30, something like that.
Yeah, it's probably about an hour.
And then you get fed again, and then we'll come back and have some more, and then you can ask some questions. Okay, I'll leave it to you, Kieran.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. I'm not an expert. I don't think anyone can pretend to be an expert on the paranormal, and those that say they are probably lying. So, did anyone see the last talk that I did? Which seems like a lifetime ago. So that was more about an introduction to paranormal, and that was born from my frustration of what I've called the Most Haunted effect. So has anybody watched Most Haunted or TV? Yes. Yeah. They're great for when you start watching it, they're great for entertainment, but if you're watching it to further your research and to further your, I guess, knowledge of the paranormal, it's not the programme to watch really. And we'll talk a little bit more about that going forward. But people were coming on our investigations with the mindset of thinking it was going to be like Most Haunted, and within 10 or 15 minutes of nobody being possessed, and within 10 or 15 minutes of something not flying off the table, we actually have people walk out of investigations because they say, oh, this is boring, I'm going. And really what paranormal investigating is about is trying not to fall asleep at 1 in the morning. It's listening to your friend's stomach rumble because they had a curry before they came, and stuff like that. And that's really what it is, and I tried to put that into a book to try and explain to people that it isn't this glorified, everything's happening like this all the time. And I based it around equipment, so the equipment you'd be using, because of course, again, people see the equipment that is used on TV, and we'll talk a bit about it today, and they think that the equipment is, you know, because Yvette Fielding uses it, that's it, that's how you're going to get in touch with a spirit. And it's probably not. And so I tried to base it around that. And then once I'd finished that book, of course everyone asks, where's your next book? So I felt obliged to write another one, and I thought it would follow on and we would talk about experiences. So people that have gone out now and started to investigate are beginning to experience stuff. So what are they experiencing and why are they experiencing it, and how can they maybe look at it from a sceptical viewpoint? So I guarantee at some point during the talk, one of you will at least think to yourself that I don't believe in the paranormal because of the way I approach it, and I do believe, it's just I approach it with a sceptical eye. So I spoke about this at the last time I was here, so apologies for those that have seen this, but my interest before the paranormal was more about the nature of reality and how we perceive the world and why we see the world how we do. And that comes down to perception, and of course there's things going on around us that will change and alter our perception and allow us to see certain things and not see certain things. So what we have here is the light spectrum essentially, and this tiny percentage here, which recent studies, I used to say it was 0.05, but recent studies have now made that about 0.035, so it's actually smaller than they originally thought. That's the percentage of the world essentially that we can see, that we can interact with the human body. So we can't see anything that's going on here. Of course we have ultraviolet torches, just don't shine them in your kitchen, because if you think your kitchen's clean, I did that in front of my wife and got a slap. Of course we have infrared cameras which allow you to see heat and allow you to see the thermal imaging type cameras, and of course we have microwaves, radios and x-ray machines. So we have instruments that allow us to access those, but as a standard human standing here now, unless you're Superman, we cannot see any of that. So does that mean that nothing exists there? No, it just means we can't interact with what's existing there. So I would argue that any paranormal entity, and I don't just mean spirits, because people always fall into the trap of thinking that you say paranormal, you mean ghosts. But paranormal is anything outside of the normal, and we live in a very small normal, as we found out in the last year or so. So outside of the normal is paranormal, so that would be a Bigfoot or a UFO or anything like that. And I genuinely believe, the more I look into this, the more that they're existing outside of our perceptive ranges. So that would mean that extraterrestrials aren't extraterrestrials, they're not from another planet, they're not interplanetary, they're actually interdimensional. And they're here right now around us. We just can't perceive them in that tiny part of what we can perceive. And it's the same as spirits. And the trap that we always fall into is that spirits have to be a dead person. They have to be your dead mom or your dead brother or a dead dog. And again, the more I'm looking into this, the more I'm realising actually no, I don't think it is. I think it is an energy. We'll talk about this a bit more later, but I think it's an energy that was once existing within inside your mum or your dad or whatever, and therefore can portray itself as your mum or your dad, but ultimately it is just this universal consciousness that exists outside of us. So to put this into a bit of more of an explanation for people, I often use radio stations. So we all listen to a radio station. That doesn't mean that the other radio stations don't exist, you're just not tuning into it with your radio receiver. The second you change the dial, you can now tune into a new station. And have you ever had it where your two stations have kind of crossed over in your car and you hear both songs at the same time, and then it fixes itself? That's what happens when we see paranormal and we have paranormal experiences. People will say, you know, Bigfoot walked behind the tree, but he didn't come out the other side. Well, he did come out the other side, but what's happened is your radio stations have fixed themselves, so now you can't see him. And some people, medium psychics, have the ability to be able to tune into a couple of radio stations at the same time. And it's like a block of flats. We're all living in the same block of flats, just on multiple levels, multiple frequencies, multiple vibrations. And you know that someone's above you and you know that someone's below you, and you can hear them moving around. You might see a Bigfoot as you're crossing to get into the lift or something, but ultimately you can't interact with them all because you're all on different levels, and that's what's going on here. And it's really, this way of thinking is so beyond the majority of the paranormal world. I do interviews with people all the time, and when you start to talk about this, and the second you start to say that it might not be a dead person, you get shunned and you get pushed to one, you know, no, you don't know what you're talking about. And they're right, I don't know what I'm talking about. We're just theorising. This is all theory. This is all, that's what everything is, because we don't know. So, as I was writing this book, I started to think about experiences and what are they. So when we're trapped within this, what I would call the biological vessel, the human body, we are trapped within a five-sense reality, and therefore we can only sense certain things that the body will allow us to sense. So we can hear, we can see, we can sense, we can feel, and we can touch things. And that's it really. Of course we can taste and we can smell. But there's not really anything else we can do. And that's because we're trapped within this vessel. And there are some people who are lucky enough to be able to astral project and escape their body and to go elsewhere in the universe and to be able to see, and that's great for them. But for the majority of us, we're trapped here. So our experience of the paranormal, unfortunately, really just breaks down to those categories. And it really is so much more, and it can be so much more. But unfortunately, we're trapped with this. So I decided to base this presentation and the book around these categories. Now, some will cross over. For example, if you see something moving in the interference, you might also hear the thing moving, and that might be what caught your attention before you actually see it. So there is crossover, but I've tried my best to try and, you know, explain them as best as possible. I am open to kind of any questions as we go, but I will answer as quick as I can just to move on. No, because there's nothing worse than having a question. You know, you might have a question and an hour later you forgot what that question is. So just put your hand up if you do have a question. Audible experience. So we're going to talk about audible. So an example, you might hear a voice, you might hear a knock, footsteps, and that could be with your own ears. So you know that would be what I would call like a first category. You hear it with your own ears, and that's what your experience is. But you might be able to capture it with an EVP recorder, or you capture it on a video recorder and stuff like that, and that would be secondary. Does anyone here not believe in spirits? You all believe in spirits? Oh, that's a shame. Have you all experienced spirit activity? Okay.
We can play the devil's advocate, Kieran, and pretend that we don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
quite a few mediums in the room.
I actually had one in Lytham. I had a lady walk out on me because she thought it was just all rubbish.
I've been in a physical seance, many physical seances,
Okay.
shaking hands with dead people.
Ah, right. Okay.
So-called dead
And
people.
you felt the.
Oh, I felt them, yes. They've tapped me on the head.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
They've actually pulled me up on my feet.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. So this is some of the equipment that you might use. So we have a spirit box, which might enable you to hear certain things. Obviously a camera and your EVP recorder. Have you anyone experienced using this kind of equipment, spirit boxes, EVP recorders yet? Really, it's when you begin to learn what they are, and then when you see the price tag associated with them, and you think, wow, you know, just because Yvette Fielding uses one, they can charge £60 now for basically a dictaphone that you used to be able to get for about 10 quid from WH Smith's or something. And this is essentially a radio scanner, so we talk about radio stations. When you press the next key in your car or on your radio box, it'll just, as soon as it finds the next station, it stops, and that's it. This is exactly the same, but it has that ability taken out. So as soon as it finds the next station, it just wants to keep scanning, and that's all it is. You can make these. I know people that make these themselves. I'll talk about this. Someone's been preloaded with a question to ask me about that later to remind me to talk a bit about spirit boxes. So about I'm going to ask Ryan here. Was it about December 2019? We went down to Essex.
Essex,
Yeah. So literally just before whatever has been happening for the last however long. So about December 2019, we got called to a house in Essex, not too far from Enfield actually, to a family who were really struggling.
Basildon, wasn't it?
It is near Basildon, yeah. And they were really struggling for with something that was going on in their house. And I heard their stories and I saw a couple of videos, and I remember thinking, I could debunk a couple of those. But we decided to go down and have a look. Within 5 minutes, well, less than that, of walking through the door, we both had a penny thrown off our head, and from nowhere. And most of what you'll see today is evidence from that house. So it's going to be a lot of evidence, some good stuff, some stuff that I will show you and then tell you why I don't think it's real as well. But it's just opinion, and it's perception. You might think it's real. So audible. So we might hear knocking. So I've turned the volume up. Tell me if you can't hear this. Could you hear that? Yep. So this is to explain the house, and you'll get to know the house as we go. It's like a virtual tour. So this is the landing upstairs. That they've got a dog. This was about 3 o'clock in the morning. Now the family decided to put up. I suggested they put up like CCTV essentially in their house. So they brought these motion sensor cameras. They're not flush. They're not made of money. They brought what they could. So these cameras only turn on when there's movement or sound, and they are quite good cameras actually. And they've caught quite a lot. So the dog moving around here is what would have triggered that camera to come on. And yeah, so we can listen to that again, I think, just to kind of hear that knocking at the end. So there's no one up at the minute. The dog's obviously moving around. And that is a very kind of, very patterny, you know, there's no inconsistencies there. And knocking is something she actually, we're making a documentary on this house at the moment, so you'll have to keep your eye out for that. She messaged me last night to say that it's all starting again. Great. So basically this family, they've got 2, what will probably now be like 9-year-old autistic twins, and for 3 or 4 months of this time, the whole family were sleeping downstairs in the living room because they were so scared of being upstairs. And it's when you think, oh, this is fake, and when you go and you meet the family and you see that they've got these autistic children, and you think, what would the family, the parents, get out of scaring their children? Why would they do that, living downstairs like they are? So that's some knocking. So this one, there's going to be some audio. Try and see what you can hear. So you can hear that quite, it's probably not quite a nice sound. So I'm going to go back because I don't want to tell you what I think it says. It's quite instant, this one. Does anyone hear anything? Hear any words? Outside? Not too far. So for me, it's get out of my house. So now let's talk about this. This is something called pareidolia, where you can see patterns and stuff. And what I've just done now is I've told you what to hear, and you will definitely hear that now. And this is why I try and do it where I want you to hear it first, because there's so many times where we're told what to hear. You might go on a ghost hunt and they have their resident medium there, who will tell you what to see, tell you what to feel, and make sure you have a great night. And it's done by doing things like this, so I try and avoid that. But this is what I think it says. Followed by like a laugh. It's like out of my house. Are you hearing outside?
Yeah.
Okay. At the end?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I just hear that as a laugh. Okay.
No, the bit before.
No, the
the
bit
Oh,
before,
right, okay.
Yeah, the bit before.
So you definitely don't hear the word house?
Outside.
Is that a Geordie accent? Though? You don't hear house?
That was it there.
Okay. See, but this is what's so great, because we can't prove what that says, and it's all about perception. But for me, there is definitely a voice there. That's not a mechanical noise. That's not a fake. That's not the washing machine that just happens to sound like someone saying something. There's definitely a voice there.
Is there a machine that can be put through that actually picks up?
Yeah, so I've tried this because I actually produce music in my spare time, and we've tried to, and that's as clear as I can get it. That's why it's not on a video. That's as clear as I can get that. I can't do any more with it, and it's the quality of the camera that it's been captured on, really.
Reverse speech, it's similar to that, isn't it?
Ah, yeah, okay.
So when you watch things about reverse speech and it says this is what it says, but they've told you that.
They've already told you.
Yeah.
So they're planting it in your head. So there's a great programme, I spoke about this last time, called My Ghost Story, and it shows a lot of experience. It's a really good programme. But what they do is they'll show you an EVP recording with the subtitles at the bottom.
Yes.
And I did this, so I tried this on my wife. So she was making a cup of tea, because I've trained her well. And when she came back, I paused it and I got my arm kind of like this. And I was like, what do you think this says? And she guessed, and she was miles off. And when I moved my arm, she went, oh no, I can hear that now. And it's simply because she'd read that. And they've done these recent things, what's the word? Right, you'll know this. Is it lilac and something? Where there's a mouth moving and there's two words on the screen, and if you look at one word, you will hear that word. And if you look at they're completely separate. They don't sound alike. But it's when you're looking at the mouth and you've pre-planted that word in your head, that's what you hear. And that's what we're doing here. And I try to avoid it so much with this, because it's all about perception and personal perception as well. So what happened here, the backstory, probably should give you a bit of backstory on this house. So she has a teenage daughter who she's probably not a teenager, you know, and she was out with some friends in a graveyard doing some very silly stuff, and she happened to fall into an open grave. Yeah, so she fell into an open grave because there was nothing in there, they just pre-dug it, and she clambered out of the grave, came home, and they felt like they had to say sorry. So they put some candles around on the floor, lit some candles. Of course, Kelly and Lee, mum and dad, are upstairs in bed. This is early hours of the morning. Her and her friends have lit some candles downstairs and they've said sorry, blah, blah, blah. While they're doing that, the whole electric in the house has just gone loud bang, the fuse box has blown. So they've come down, tried to fix the fuse box, can't fix it. So the next day the council come and fix the fuse box, and that's that. About 2 weeks after that, Lee was in the house on his own. He heard a very loud bang at the door, like almost like the police were banging, that kind of really loud banging. So he goes to the door, he opens the door, there's no one there. So I've had people tell me, oh, that's it now, he's let it in. He's let it in, and I think this is an energy. It doesn't need to come through a front door, you know. So, but that's the mindset of people. Anyway, so there's this loud bang, and then about half hour after that, he's gone upstairs and he's captured some footage, which I'll show you later, of some very good footage. And from then on, that has been it. That's been where all the activity has come from. So that's kind of the backstory. I feel that's probably quite important. So this is a growl, so there's no words here, but just see if you can hear this. So this is Lee, excuse the nakedness. So this is interesting because, of course, first thing I think, so this is downstairs, we're in the back of the house, the pantry area. It's opened the back door, the dog has come in, big dog, as you saw in the last video. Now, he's behind the dog, so he would know if the dog's just growled. To me, that doesn't sound like a dog growl. And he turns at the end there to the dog and says, you just heard that as well, didn't you? He talks a lot to the dog. He said, you just heard that, didn't you? And so it was clearly come from behind him.
The dog say?
Dog said, no, you're a nutter. So it's clearly come from behind him. So if you want to, again.
Why is he wearing a nappy?
They're pale trousers.
Oh, okay.
This was on a Saturday, and I am told he only wears nappies on Wednesdays. I can't beat that. But
he's a Brummie.
He's not from Essex, and you can say what you like about Brummies. I'm not one. So he intimidates him a lot, it seems to, because he's the man of the house. And what we found about this entity, because I'm not going to call it a person or whatever, but this entity can basically, it tries to mimic voices. So he's been out of the house at work, and they've heard him upstairs calling down, like, Kelly, come upstairs. And the voice followed it with lol. Kelly, come upstairs, lol. Like a child would say, you know, the kind of text speak. And to me, that's this entity trying too hard. He would never say that. That's not how he would talk, and it's trying too hard. They've had the dog bark when the dog's been out. They've had children laughing when there's been no children in the house. So this thing is quite clever, and it can mimic voices, and that's quite a common thing with hauntings, is mimicry. But a growl is very animalistic. And he heard that, and the thing that tells me this wasn't the dog is because he's turned to the dog as if to say, you know, did you hear that? And he turns back behind him as if it's come from behind him.
Mightn't like tattoos.
What?
It mightn't like tattoos.
It might not like tattoos, no. No, I mean, I've got a video, I hope it's on here. Lee gets punched by an unseen force, and his whole body language, it's a really, really good video. But it tends to target Lee. I think it's intimidated by Lee. So this is this one's a little bit messy, but you do hear the word oi. So you can hear someone's talking in the background. So there's some lights on. So it was December, right? That's Christmas tree. So you can hear someone's talking in the background. But this noise is quite mechanical. It's quite high pitched. It's different to the noise you're hearing in the background, and it's a completely different vocal range to the growl that you've just heard. So it shows this range of voices that this thing can do. It's a very weird noise, but for me that is just a oi. So to get the layout of the house now, so that's the back door, so that's the door he would have just come through when you heard the growl as he was coming back in through the house. And this here, with the landing up the top, in my opinion is the epicentre of the house. That's where everything happens. And we took a K2 meter, didn't we, and it was crazy. And the first thing I said to the family was, have you had someone come and check your electrics, because your EMF is through the roof. And as I spoke about in the last presentation I did, EMF can give you the false perception of paranormal activity when in fact it's not. EMF really does play with your mind. But she said that because of what had happened with the fuse box, the council had to come out and do a routine check like a month after and confirm that everything was fine in the house. And they have LED lights that flicker, and they shouldn't, because being LED, they flicker on and off all the time. They have a lot of problems with their electrics, a hell of a lot of problems. But that's the epicentre, and the K2 meter there was constant, orange to red, all the time.
Is it an old house?
So I've looked. So what was there before used to be factories, Victorian factories, which is interesting, and it's probably. It's post-war, it's post-World War II, but it's a council house, and of course they've tried to move, and the council won't accept my house is haunted as a reason to move. And of course anyone that's moving in probably wouldn't. She's tried to do house swaps, and as soon as they've heard what's going on, the people have pulled out, which is a shame. Not so sure what this is, but let's give it a listen. So you might have heard a voice just before that happened.
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, I know what this is. So he comes out of the. So we have the living room here. So he's come out of the living room. He's obviously sensed there's something going on. He might have heard something, hence why the cameras come on, because he's picked up some movement. And as he turns around, you hear this voice, and then he gets hit by something. Something hits him, and you hear it kind of hit the floor. So see if you can hear that voice again. Does anyone need me to turn this up? Is the volume okay? Yeah, okay. Does anyone want to have a guess? It is quite vague, that.
Can you play it again?
Yep, sure. There's really two words that stick out to me right before he gets hit.
Is it just before he gets hit?
Mm. One more time then before.
Sounds like that's fine.
That's fine, okay. No? So you can hear the TV again in the back. I've got the TV on now, but that's a completely separate noise again. And it has that same kind of mechanical noise as the oi had. To me, I hear going to get you. And the get you is very specific, just before he gets hit. Get you, smack. See, now I've told you what to do.
Once you tell us, we can, yeah.
But I hear get you. And I've just assumed the going to bit.
Why does he get hit? I couldn't quite make it.
Well, yeah, it's very strange.
It looks like
yeah.
he's kicking it. Got nothing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It comes and hits him the here.
Okay. It does look like he's kicking.
Because at this point they were having Christmas. I'll show you a picture later. There's Christmas ornaments being thrown around the house and stuff. Yeah. The big thing is pennies, which we'll get to later. So this next one is for me personally. So I did a talk at Truth Juice Bristol, and I had this. I was just doing a talk, and I've got this radio thing here. So I've got a microphone there because the guy Dan was recording it on camera, and he wanted to pick up clear audio. And what you see here is while I'm talking, and at the time I remember someone said Kieran, so I've stopped as if to say yeah, and people in the audience kind of going. No, nothing. So I went, okay, and carried on. About 2 weeks later, while Dan was editing it, he sent me this clip and went, you might want to give this a listen. And there you go. So,
Oh, I heard that. Yeah.
wasn't call my name. And I forgot about it, just moved on. But and that was it. And Dan said, you might want to hear this. But after that, someone approached me and said, I don't know what that is. That thing is that follows you everywhere. But you've got something. And I've had that at about 3 groups I've spoken to have all said, you have a very big black...
last time you were in the centre, what was there, Pauline and Arthur?
Pauline and Arthur,
And they
yeah.
had to leave and they didn't get to talk to you.
Oh, okay.
They said there was
Something behind me, yeah. I have that all the time. I don't know who he is, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should start charging him for following me around. But yeah, see if you can hear that again. There you go. So,
yeah.
doesn't call my name. But it's great, this is, for me, on a personal level, because I heard that and then I've moved on and I forgot about it. But it's proven that sometimes, so what happens when we think about perception? So you could be sat where you are now and you might feel something stood next to me. But when you look with your human eyes and you see that there's nothing there, seeing is believing, so they say. So you'll just dismiss it. You'll say, oh, there's nothing there, I can't see it, I'm being silly. But who's to say there isn't something there? You know, you're sensing it on a different level. You're sensing it with deeper than the human perception goes.
We tend to hear things when you're just waking up, or
which is very interesting.
I've had doorbells knocking. I've even had my bed being lifted like a shuggy boat.
Yeah.
And
so some of that can be attributed to being in a dream state, but I think a lot of it is real, and I think it's you're in a state where you're not quite living in the reality that you're in because you're not awake, and therefore your mind is slightly altered. Yeah. So the physically moved.
The bed. I was lying on my tummy, and it was like somebody got a hold of the bottom of the bed, which it didn't have a foot rail, and it was like somebody getting the bottom of the bed and just went like that.
Well,
Yeah.
No, also this
That was
causes
soon
sleep
after my husband
paralysis.
died.
yeah, well, sleep paralysis. So a lot of that can come from EMF. A lot of EMF. I can talk about that later. Yeah, so that's really that's some of the audio evidence. We'll move on to visible next. So does anyone want to comment on any of that?
The relationship between entities
Yes.
and using electronic equipment is interesting. So we've had some experience with that. Because because they're in that wave band.
Yeah.
It's much easier for them to do that now, where it wasn't in the past.
I think you're right. I think where it's had an effect on us. So as a human, the EMF will. So what EMF does, I might as well talk about it now. What EMF does is it suppresses your pineal gland, and therefore your pineal gland is, or your third eye, and that's responsible for releasing melatonin into your bloodstream, and that's what regulates your sleep-wake cycle. So as the sun goes down, you start to release melatonin, and that makes you tired and want to go to sleep. And then as sunlight is a natural suppressant of melatonin, so when the sunlight's on your forehead, and you're surrounded by sunlight, you wake up more because it's suppressing the melatonin. But EMF has been found to have the same suppressant levels as sunlight. So lying in a dark room, being bombarded with EMF, will have the same effect on you as lying out in the middle of the day. And there's so many stories of people that live in a house with bad electrics, with bad fuse boxes, who report sleep paralysis, who report paranoia, being watched, being choked, being touched, that soon disappears when they fix the electrics in their house. So, but what that's doing to us is it's obviously suppressing our third eye, and it's suppressing, if someone loses sleep and can't sleep properly, people charge their phones next to the bed and have broadband next to the bed. So you might not know it, but you're having a bad night's sleep, and when you have a bad night's sleep, you might dream a little bit more, you might begin to hallucinate and see things that you wouldn't normally see, which will falsely be attributed to the paranormal, when in fact it's not. It's just EMF playing with your mind. But then on the other way round, you're right, what we've done is allowed spirits who operate outside of our frequency range, which we spoke of before, can now come in on these frequencies and play a little bit more with us.
Because like going back as little as say 40 years ago, we didn't have the amount of electronic equipment that we have now. Wi-Fi wasn't around. And all this stuff has kind of brought it home for us to them. It's they can connect more.
Well, it could be, as I say, it could be. Of course, what it hasn't done is it hasn't created more ghosts, more spirits. What it's done is just given them a better avenue to get to us, because we have these, and it's amazing the amount of people that have contacted me during lockdown because they're at home more. So UFO sightings have gone down because people aren't out, looking up at the sky, and reports of hauntings have gone through the roof because people are spending more time in their house. But of course, they're spending more time in the house with more electronics and stuff, so a lot of it could be false, but there is a huge chunk of it that I believe is real. Absolutely.
We had friends in Scotland who moved into a gatehouse, and they were actually living in 2 dimensions.
Okay.
She's very psychic.
Yeah.
And whenever they moved anywhere, she would go in first, and she says, I didn't pick up anything.
Right.
But then strange things started happening. And she said there was only one staircase in the house. And this night her husband woke up and she wasn't in bed. He didn't think anything of it. And he went to the bathroom, which was downstairs, and he came back up and she was in the bed. And the next morning he said what had happened. She says, I didn't get out of bed. Wow. And people who came to stay with them would be in one room and put something there, go out, go back for it, and it wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
But it would be in another room. And that was how they discovered it was a gatehouse, and they were actually living between dimensions.
That's interesting.
Well named, isn't it?
Sorry?
It's really well named, a gatehouse. Yeah.
I interviewed a guy who claimed that he woke up at about, well, he was just going to bed at about 9 o'clock in the evening, 8:30, and he could hear a bit of a banging in his bathroom. So he gets up, goes to his bathroom to see what's going on, and he just nudges the door open, and he sees himself brushing his teeth.
Yeah.
And kind of backed off and went to bed, and you know. So one of the theories I've been toying with recently is, well, me and Ryan have been talking about quite a lot, is time not being linear. So time clearly isn't linear.
Yes.
And everything, you know, we will have this conversation tomorrow. We already had it yesterday, and on it goes. So when he saw himself brushing his teeth, or when he saw that his wife wasn't in bed, he could have just had a very time slip, and actually he was looking at his bed from 2 hours before when she wasn't in bed. And when is
that like deja vu?
So deja vu could happen because you've already had that chat or that experience.
That used to happen a lot to me when I was young.
So, for example, if you think when you're sat on your settee and you watch a Victorian woman walk through the wall, you might not be seeing her ghost. You might actually be seeing her in her timeline, there and then.
Printed.
So her time is just on a loop, and you're witnessing it happen.
Where I used to live, the husband used to tell us that his son was standing at the bus stop one day and looked over to the house, and he seen a Roman soldier. Well, of course, we're very near a Roman fort, you see. And I remember when he told me the story, I said to Mark, I said, so did you see his feet? Because I was aware that he was probably seeing a photograph on time. And of course the ground level changes, and if you didn't see his feet, that's what you were seeing.
Well, that's why you see them, they'll seemingly walk through a wall, but it's because in their lifetime that was a door.
So it's normally something very traumatic.
Yeah. I think for me, it when you start to think about this stuff and how it's actually not a ghost, it's more probably a time slip or a time loop, it plays back into what I mentioned at the start, where I genuinely don't believe spirits are dead people. I don't. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go.
Excuse me, did you live in Walker when that happened?
Yeah.
Because Walker's built on a medieval graveyard?
Yeah, definitely.
That's interesting. Is this not Walker now?
Walkerville. We're in the posh end.
Oh, okay.
Oh, please do say
Walker. So that was audible, so visible. So seeing with your own eyes again, so category 1, shadows, orbs, that's quite rare to see a full manifestation. So to see a Roman soldier or stuff like that is really quite rare. And what I mean by rare is, I don't mean people haven't experienced it, but when you're going out on a ghost hunt, it's very rare you'll go home having experienced that. It's very rare you go home having experienced anything really. Capturing on a video recording, capturing on a thermal imaging camera, which allows you to see into the infrared spectrum, and capturing with a photo. And again, some of the type of equipment that you might use. So that's a thermal imaging camera, and essentially all infrared is something that's stored heat and is slowly releasing heat, so that's infrared. We've had some good stuff with this where we've captured a chair where no one's sat, but it's warm, as if someone is sat there, and when we went back, it had cooled down, so it was more like this kind of colour, as if whatever was sat there had moved. And a laser grid pen. Has anyone ever experienced these? So it is just a laser pen, you know, the ones you used to have as a kid and you didn't know your mum. Yeah. So all it is it's a laser pen where someone's put a cap on with loads of holes and it splits the laser out. And these are quite good if you're using a flat surface to shine them on, and it just allows you to see shadows a little bit easier really. And we have captured quite a few things by looking at stuff like this. However, if you're staring at a laser for more than 5 minutes, it will begin to mess with your eyes. So that's something to think about. And if it isn't on a flat surface, the laser will try and find a flat surface, so it will look like they're moving, but they're not. So even if you've just got a slight kind of, bit sticking out on the wall that you think is flat, it will mess with the laser. So you really have to be careful where you use it. But they can be good. This was a photo that I captured, that me and Ryan captured in a cemetery that's near me. So it was absolutely freezing that night, as you can tell. It got down to about -2, was it? Something like that? Yeah. And we were just walking around the graveyard, and we had some really good stuff here in the past. And I just took a photo. I thought, you know, why not? So we're taking loads of photos, and I thought I could see something here. So I thought that's interesting. So I've zoomed in a little bit, and you might just see this kind of obscure thing here. And this, what you might see there, is a little bit more of a solid square. Now I think that's a gravestone, in fairness, but that doesn't explain what's coming over here. I changed the contrast a little bit, and you can see it a little bit clearer. And then I decided to change the colour a little bit more, and you get, and in my opinion, it's a figure with a hood or a long hair kind of tied back. I can probably show you this on the phone, and it might be a little bit clearer as being blown up. But that is, for me, that's a gravestone. What you can see there. But you can see how this kind of comes down over, kind of covers over, and the colour's interesting because the colour completely stands out against the rest of the background, and that colour doesn't occur anywhere else. That's quite an interesting photo that we caught that. This next photo is caught at the house, so I will refer to it as the house as we go. Can anybody see anything in that photo?
A face.
Looks like dark.
There's a
Looks like an ape or a...
An ape. I'm so glad you've said that, because I see a chimp.
Oh yes.
You're the first person to ever say it looks like a chimp.
I thought it looks like
Looking side on with his ear.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's exactly how I see it. So what we have here, in my opinion, is a very dirty, smudged mirror. And this could be pareidolia again. This could be the human brain wants to make sense of everything, and it wants to turn jumbled patterns and jumbled images into something. That's why we can see faces in clouds.
And wallpaper.
Wallpaper, yeah, and the face on Mars maybe, and all that stuff. However, there's something to this, I think. There really is. And I'm so glad you said that looks like a chimp, because the first thing I ever thought was it looks like a chimp.
There's a joke attached to that, where he's injured his knees and he wants 2 hip knees for a penny.
I'll put that on the bottom of the slide for the next one. But you can even see his teeth. I mean, what's the chances that it looks like a face and you get teeth where the teeth would be? It has to be a very interesting set of coincidences in terms of smudge marks on the mirror to make it look like that. And it's almost looking at her as well, kind of side on in my opinion. And it looks quite. We say that it looks like a chimp, but for me, he's obviously got very good taste and has sideburns that are coming down, and that would fit in with that Victorian era of when the house, or what was on the house before.
Planet of Apes wasn't on the TV, was it?
Yeah, reflection.
Looks female though.
You think?
Yeah.
Female with better sideburns than me. I don't know about that.
Got a beard, man.
That looks female.
It's all perception. It's all perception. And I've put this up and people have gone, nah, I can't see anything.
It's about to tap her on the shoulder, say, are you dancing?
Are you asking? Yeah, so apart from the very vain teenager, and again, this is on the landing. So it's that area again where all this activity happens. So we're back to the cemetery now. So I'm not going to do it with you guys, but I normally put a trick question and say, right, can you see that? And there's nothing to see. This is just a normal photo. It's for
There's nothing to see here.
It's for the purpose of the next photo. So we took a load of photos. So this wasn't. Me and Ryan went with another guy, and it was Les that caught these pictures. So he's just using a digital camera. But the photo straight after this was that, and basically he was going that quick with these photos. So for something to kind of appear in front of the screen, and it's the same as you can see. So the reason I've shown the picture before is for context. So you can see like this little brick wall running down here, and if we look in the next picture, you can still see the brick wall running down here. So it's the same as he's just gone like this. So just to prove I'm not kind of lying.
The first one, it looks like 2 eyes.
Really? Have you seen something I haven't? I'll have to look at that. I'll look at that, remind me. But then that came, and then the picture after was back to that. So, what is it? So, well, it's cold, it could be breath, it could be anything like that. But that's quite solid. You actually can't see behind that.
No, that looks like a face.
It's really
that
obscuring.
Looks like an eye, nose and mouth.
It could be. Yeah, it could be. So what I tried to do, again, same image, so we've still got this wall look. So I breathed in front of the camera now, thinking, is it just breath? But you can see here, this is my breath, and it's very opaque. You can see through it, you can still see the ground, you can see the wall, you can see the background. So that's breath, and that was taken straight away. So I kind of went, and that's what it looked like. And that's very different to that, which has a very solid shape. You can cut round it. You know, whereas the breath is more kind of wispy. There's no real clear outline.
Face a bit on to the right of it.
The mouth,
that's the nose.
Yeah.
Eyes and,
yeah.
And
but I mean, I don't. It could be an insect that has flown in front of the camera, dead quick, or it could be something paranormal. We don't know. But it's this is really, apart from managing to capture a full manifestation, this is what most people have to go on, unfortunately. But it's just interesting that you kind of have nothing, solid mass, and when I tried to kind of debunk it with my breath, that's breath. So it wasn't breath. It wasn't breath. We've had a lot of stuff at that graveyard, haven't we? We'll have to go back now to warmer.
When you see on the faces, they say that the class is simulacra, don't they?
As?
Simulacra is a, you know, when you see faces in stone and whatever else.
It's pareidolia. That's
it. Right?
Yeah. I'll have to look at that word if that's a
simulacra.
Okay, so big shadow. So we're back to the house. So we're back up on the landing, and what you're going to see here is the family are downstairs, and some activity has happened, and she's trying her best and her quickest to get the kids out of the door before they get really scared. And you can kind of hear the panic in her voice, and you see a shadow on the landing, almost like it's monitoring what's going on, and you'll see it. Just keep your eye here and here. See that how it's just got dark here?
Was the house haunted before they moved in?
Could be a different video I was talking about. No, they never had a thing.
So they took it with them?
They were the biggest sceptics you could ever meet. The biggest sceptics.
Do you think it's got something to do with their children?
I think it's to do with
the autistic kids, you mean, yeah.
Sorry?
The autistic children.
The fact they're autistic, you mean.
Yeah, are they on a different frequency?
But what's the chance of it happening after she fell into an open grave and messed around with candles, asking the spirit world for...
Right.
Could you play that again?
Yeah, sure. But the dog clearly reacts to something again. So this wall here, so this camera is, I'll have to explain. Imagine that's the end of the landing, so the dogs just walk down there, and it's a solid wall. You've got the bathroom door and the master bedroom here, and there is nothing there. It's just a wall with a camera stuck up in the corner. That's all there is. There's nothing behind it, and that will be important for later on.
Have she gone back to the grave since she fell into it?
No.
She's a good idea.
Was it Elise? Yeah. You'll see her in a minute. She's in some. That's the one who was just on that photo with the chimp. I think she has massive regrets about what she did.
So do you think she's brought something back from the
definitely. I think something's happened. Yeah, something's happened. And she moved out and it stopped. And she literally, it was only last night that Kelly messaged. I've been in touch with Kelly because I said to do this documentary, but it was only last night, coincidentally, that Kelly texted me saying, "We're going again." And she's had a lot of stuff started again. So her other daughter had a baby, and it stopped around that time. And I think Elise has moved back now into the house, and
so it's attached to it.
I think it could be. I think it could be. So this is the continued. So this is where you hear them downstairs now. So So the dog's gone down. See that? So she's like, go, 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 get out. See, she said something going on the camera upstairs. Because when the camera triggers, she gets a notification on her phone. So if she's out and something's going on, she can watch it on her phone. So you can hear the panic there, and you can see this kind of, it's like hovering. It's almost like waiting for them to go or something. Because for me, this is the portal. This is the epicenter. Shadow and door. Right. So this next video. This was the. Remember I said Lee had the banging on the door. He opened the door, nothing was there. About half hour later, he's gone upstairs because he thought he could hear something, and he caught a shadow. This is the next video. This is, apart from the video I'll show you at the end, this is one of the best pieces of footage I've ever seen. And now you've seen Lee, he's a big guy, and he poos his pants a little bit here.
Hence the nappy.
Yeah, hence the nappy. Yeah. So this is the first bit of evidence they ever captured. So he's heard something. He's up on that landing.
Where is it?
That's that one.
Hello? Anyone there? Anyone there?
Wow.
If you just focus here.
I can hear you. Where are you?
Oh, yeah.
Hey? Where? Where?
So this was the first thing he ever captured.
Very well, the man.
So what you can see there is that wall there. That's where the camera was just capturing the shadow going over the bathroom and the. So what that shadow is just run from the bedroom into the bathroom. So again, just so you can watch it. It's a very. I've tried to kind of localise this shadow to see what it is. It's very imp-like. It's very small. A stark contrast to the shadow that you saw on the last video, where it seemed to be quite big, dominating the doorway.
Where is it? Hello? Anyone there? Anyone there? I can hear you. Where are you? Hey? Where? Where?
I bet you wish you tidied that up now. So that's interesting on so many levels. So the first thing we tried to do when we went down was we need to debunk this. So one of us was filming, one of us was stood behind trying to create a shadow on the wall to see if that could work. But what's interesting is the shadow physically comes out of the room. It starts in the room. So if he's casting the shadow, as we know light doesn't go around bends, how is it in that doorway? So it comes out of the room, it runs into the room that just happens to have the door slammed. So we tried the door. Is it a loose door? Is there a breeze? How does it slam? If you shut it slowly, does it slam? It didn't. There was some force behind that door. And people have said, oh, someone's just stood behind the door and they've just slammed it. Fine, you know, I'm a skeptic. But explain the shadow. And explain the fear in the bloke, you know. And again, it's so important to stress that it's easy to be critical in your armchair where you've never met the family and you don't know their understandings and you don't know how they are as people. But when you've actually been and met them, it makes it so much more real. So yeah, that's it. Anyone who wants to see this after, I can show. Okay, so we got orbs.
Could it be the phenomena of the young girls? Because it's known that young girls, especially when they're in puberty, can create.
Well, it's interesting because it focuses on Lee and it focuses on the teenage girls. The children don't really get any interaction. They've had a few scratches, which I'll show you, but most of the interaction is with the teenage girl and with Lee.
You said you said she moved out of the house and the action stopped.
She had to move out basically because the other child had a child.
What happened to her when she moved out?
Nothing.
So when she moved somewhere else?
She just moved to a flat. She went to a flat.
Did she not have anything happen there?
No.
Nothing in the flat?
No.
Only in the house?
Yep. Yeah. Like I say, we're making a very early stages, making a documentary. So we're going back down in June to start filming for it. And we're going to have them talking a lot in the documentary, so you'll get to understand from their point of view.
How close was the cemetery to the house?
There was no cemetery from what we knew. It was just a Victorian like workhouse type
You
place.
said she fell into a grave.
Yeah, oh right, yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't know that.
Because there are energy lines in graveyards, and I was wondering whether it extended.
Came to the house.
Yes.
That's something to look at. But I don't. It wasn't like it doesn't back onto the cemetery where they were. She was just out with friends at the time.
Seems to me when you're giving up a lot of fear like that, you know the way you're invoking.
You get it back. So I think what happened is, so they had a lot of people go down before me, and they were people that were waving sage around and pretending that they could get rid of this thing. And the first thing I said was, I can't get rid of this. I can't exercise your house. I can't do any of that, but I can help you capture it. I can help you understand it, and I can help you probably live with it a little bit better. Then Barry Guy from Help My House is Haunted, he caught wind of it. So he went down there and did a bit of filming and asked, can I put this on TV? And she didn't like him, she didn't like the vibe, she didn't like as with most of these TV shows. She didn't want it to be sensationalised, so she said no. And he then spent the next 3 months literally harassing her until she had to say, look, just back off, I don't want it on the telly. And to be fair to her, she actually said to us, didn't she? She said, this is yours, this is your case. You do what you've got to do. And I've said to her, like, look, if you feel that someone else can really help you, I'm not going to be mad. I just care about the family, really. But I think they kind of just had enough. They were like, oh, look, we can't be arsed with this anymore, we can't be bothered, you don't scare us. And so it just stopped. It just stopped. And something
was feeding it.
Well, her message to me last night was, me and Lee have had a really big argument and this has just happened. So it's that negativity. It's that negativity. So orbs, I don't know what anyone's opinion on orbs are, but I have some, I don't know. I don't know about orbs. I think they have to be judged on a case-by-case basis. I think a lot of it is dust, a lot of it is dirt. Or lights or lens flares if you're using a digital camera. But some of them are very intelligent, they're very interactive. So if you're ever seeing a video, you can see the dust because it all tends to follow one direction. It all just goes off in one because there's going to be a draft or a breeze, even if you can't feel it. But it's when all of a sudden you might spot a light start to go in the opposite direction and moving around and changing speed and stuff like that. That's when it gets quite interesting. And they have their orbs in this house.
I've just been reading in one of Dolores Cannon's books about orbs and wormholes.
Yeah.
And she said you can get an orb attached to a wormhole, but there's an orb on the other end of the wormhole, and you travel through the wormhole, through the orbs.
Oh, okay. There's a guy, Patrick Jordan, or Jordan Patrick. Either one works, I guess. I think it's Patrick Jordan, and he's very outspoken at the moment. I don't agree with him, but he thinks that all paranormal activity can be attributed to. He thinks that there's these orbs that have been created by extraterrestrials that are in orbit around the Earth, and that's what we are experiencing here with the paranormal. It's very hard to explain. Just
I mean, my sister had one in her house. She said it was gold.
Yeah.
She said it was about the size of a golf pole.
Okay.
And she had a room like this. She said it literally just came straight through the room.
I think there's no doubt that orbs are a paranormal phenomena on their own. When people say it's the early manifestation of a spirit, I don't agree with that. I think it's a separate phenomenon.
You very often get them in gardens in the evening if you take a
photograph.
photograph.
My family dog died about 3 years ago or so, and there was a line in the grass where she used to run. She was very kind of habitual, and she would run down the garden, sniff a few plants and run back. And she would always run back, much to my mum's distaste, through the pots. She'd squeeze through the plant pots, knock all the petals off. And one day they were sat in the garden not long after she died, and they watched this light go up that path through the plant pots, exactly like she would, and into the house. And similarly, my dad and my brother saw an orb the size of a football come through the window, lower to the ground, and go into the kitchen. At the time, the dog was alive, and the dog came out barking, going mad, and just sat growling into the kitchen. So they are a phenomena on their own. This is Lee's feet up filming again. So you just see that one shoot down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Oh, we've whoa.
But there's not much dust. There's no kind of common pattern to where these are moving, you know.
Oh, yeah, okay. You're very close now.
You can feel something there, you can hear him saying. So this is when we were there. I must have just told a really funny joke. So we were all downstairs in the living room at the time, and if you saw it right at the start, you see these two orbs come flying past, down the stairs, as if they want to come and listen, or see what's going on. But there's nothing else. There's nothing else there. Could be an insect, maybe. It was quite fast the way it's shot down.
Are they using the
So this is no, we're there. So but this is during our investigation. Right. So that's us using the spirit board. Don't be scared of spirit boards.
No, I'm not. No. I was just wondering if they were using it.
Yeah, I've got one here that I'll show you later. It's quite an interesting one. And some more orbs. So this is Ryan's leg, and then you'll see one. Go through that door. So that's an interesting room. So we decided to split up. So this is the hallway. So the bathroom and everything is up this end of the hallway where that shadow was before, and this is the other end of the hallway, top of the stairs, and that's the teenager's bedroom. So I was in there, and behind on the back of this door was like a shoe rack where they put their shoes in. And so I went in, and there's a bed, and it's a really small room really. So as you go through there, the bed's there, and you can literally just stand there. There's no room for anything else. So I decided to sit on the bed. So I sat on the bed, the doorway's to my right, and I'm just looking at the wall. It's dark, no one else is there, we're all in a room each. And I feel this whack on my back. Oh, okay. So I've stood up, shone my torch, and a shoe is now lying on the bed. So a shoe has come out of the rack, gone round me, and hit me in the back.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, so I've kind of come out and said, like, guys, I've just had a shoe hit me. So we said, okay, let's swap rooms. So we put this guy, Rich, who you could hear laughing before, he went in that room. I forced Rich into that room, I should say. And he decided to stand facing the door. So I've left the shoe on the bed, I've left it there. So he's now facing the door, the bed is to his right, and after about a minute,
Even that one?
Yeah, I'm in the bathroom, he's literally come running into my arms, saying something's hit me on the back. So we went back into the room, and the shoe was now on the floor. And it was the same shoe that I'd left on the bed.
Wow.
So from where he was stood, the shoe would have had to have off the bed, round him, right angle, and hit him in the back. Really interesting.
Is there any significance to the colour of the wall? Did they paint the place?
Well, it's interesting, yeah. So they've redecorated about 3 months after this, and that was around the time it stopped again.
Wow.
So you get that. You get a lot of places where if they're renovating, if they're ripping things out, they get a lot of activity.
Yeah.
But I think she painted it all white, I think, because she wanted to try and
a friend
have
of
positivity.
ours has been haunted since they took the fireplace out.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if the spirit just it's like, I don't know, like a medieval Lawrence Llewellyn Bowen that doesn't like what you've done with it.
Just not my taste.
Knock, repeat after us. So I knocked, and it reacted to the knocking there. You can go again.
You seem to not be knocking again. Knock, repeat after us.
And it's all these orbs have all been caught on the landing. It's all that area there. Now this next one.
Where's the door that slammed in relation to where you are there?
So the door that slammed is so this is the hallway here, and the door that slammed is this end of the hallway.
Oh, okay.
The hallway is probably, I don't know, the length of this room here. So this next door, so this is me in Drakelow Tunnels. This was the night we decided to play a little bit of Vera Lynn to see if we could get some 1940s activity, which we did. We were on the spirit board at the time, and I said, right, I've had enough of Vera, she's going off now. And the glass flew to no. And I was like, fine, okay, we'll leave it on. So this is me dancing, and we capture here a red orb, and which looked like a red orb, but upon closer inspection, I think it's 2 orbs dancing. So excuse my dancing. Vera Lynn's not my style. I'm more of a ska man.
Yeah, I think he was. Why was it coming from that way though?
So you can see kind of dust flying up. We're in tunnels. It's a horrible place. Freezing cold. It's actually warmer outside. Someone's breath. That's just breath.
Wow.
See that? Kind of all this dust coming up as we're kicking it off the floor.
What's that?
So I can show you this on my phone later again.
Why are you dancing?
Because we put Vera Lynn on, and we thought if we play the music of the time.
Right.
So where we were, that was the kitchen canteen area, and that's where people would have gathered for their dinner. They'd have had some music on. They would have probably had their parties there.
Okay.
So we thought if we do a bit of dancing, we might, you know.
Sorry, I just wondered.
So to kind of without.
I think he was.
So if anyone wants to see this on my phone, it'll be a bit better. But
you were doing dab dancing.
That's what it is, awful. Like I say, Northern Soul Scar, I'm your man, but this stuff I can't do.
Wow.
But it comes round my waist, and you see the 2 red orbs intertwined.
Yeah.
What's that?
What the?
And it's red. That's what makes it stand out. Why is it red? It's not. Everything else is going that way because we're kicking it off the floor. This kind of is coming down, and it's red. And if you look closely, there's 2 orbs kind of going round each other. Really interesting video for me.
Dancing with you. Yeah.
Dancing. That's what I think he was doing.
You,
yeah, I think so.
Wow.
I don't normally mind, but I wish you'd ask.
Then you had that movement just before that as well.
Yeah, but yeah, there's probably more to the video that I should probably analyse, to be fair. Now this is an interesting one. This was caught by a friend of mine, Glenn. So he's gone on holiday, I think he's in Monmouth, so on the border of Wales, and he captured this.
Oh, it's very.
So it's bright green, which is interesting. However, I think you can see wings.
I think it's
So
very.
If you look, you can see the kind of the fuzziness. There's definitely wings. So is it a fly, just kind of, or a bug, kind of getting the reflection off the camera?
Or a fairy, an element.
Or a fairy, could be a fairy, yeah.
It looks like a brown-frowned fairy.
It's I just don't know the races of fairies.
Looks like a what?
Brown frowns, you know, the fairies he does. Look
Ah,
at those.
right.
But I think that's an interesting video. But again, how often do people just go, yeah, it's a fly, and never watch it again? There might be actually something
What
in
time of
there.
year was that?
Well, I think it was summertime.
Uh-huh.
Knowing Glenn, he wouldn't go away in the winter. It's got a hot tub though, so it would have been nice.
Wow.
So this one's interesting. So we're in the house. So there's a lot going on there. So there was a voice at the start, the light turns itself off in the kitchen, an orb comes out and you hear that rattle.
Yeah.
See what you think of this. This will be the last one before the break. So you can hear that voice, that weird kind of voice going throughout that. I can't explain the light turning off, I can't explain the voice, I can't explain the orb, but the rattle is the dog shaking. I think. The laminate flooring, he's got a collar on and he's just gone.
Right.
I think that's the rattling. But it goes to and I didn't know that, so I showed this at BUFOG, Birmingham UFO Group, and the guy put his hand up and went, "Isn't that the dog just rattling with his collar?" And I was like, "That's a really good point." and so it goes to show that the fresh set of eyes can help debunk what you think is paranormal. So we'll move on to like more of the categories after the break, but before that, has anyone got any questions? You can ask me during the break if you like.
When we did table tilting, and Graham was there, weren't you, Graham? We've done table tilting quite a bit, and we've always had orbs.
Interesting.
But
Yeah.
You see it on the camera, not physically.
Yeah, well, so the thing is, so cameras will pick up, because of the light reflection on the camera, you'll pick up things like dust. Like you can't see dust now with your own eyes, but if you turn a phone camera on now, I guarantee you will.
Went to a house.
Kids with Stuart.
With Stuart, on his invitation to went to 2 houses in Gateshead. It's a very haunted place. But we went to specifically this one house, and we got very specific
and the light,
activity, didn't we?
But the light was going light and dark, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I never got that mix. Oh my God, this great big one went right across. And I put it on a USB stick and I gave it to Steve Meara, and he said it was some of the best evidence he'd seen.
Oh, okay. Well, nice one. I do think orbs are, they're a phenomena on their own. When people claim that they're the very early stages of a physical manifestation, how can you prove that? You can't prove that. There's clearly something with orbs, and you can prove that with all the evidence that people have. But I think they have to be looked at separate to what we would think as spirits. I think they're separate. Yes, we'll have a break.
Right, okay then. Right, put the kettle on, I'm not your skilly. And we'll have about a half an hour, help yourself to food. The cat's birthday cake is there. Roxy and Waking Nick 6 today. Back here.
The electrics in that house.